Let me tell you a story that spans thousands of years, full of mystery, war, and transformation. This is the history of Japan, but not the boring version you might find in textbooks. This is the raw, shocking journey of how a scattered group of ancient settlers turned a collection of islands into one of the most powerful nations on Earth. It all begins over 38,000 years ago, during the Paleolithic era. Imagine a world where the Earth was cold, wild, and unforgiving. Early humans, hunters, and gatherers first arrived on the Japanese archipelago, carving out a tough existence. But here's where things start to get interesting. Their legacy didn't fade away. By 14,000 BC, something extraordinary happened. Enter the Jomon period, a culture so advanced for its time that it still baffles historians. These people weren't just surviving, they were creating. They crafted some of the world's oldest pottery, with intricate cord-marked patterns that give the Jomon period its name. And here's the crazy part. They made these delicate pieces thousands of years before agriculture became widespread anywhere else on Earth. Imagine that. While much of the world was still figuring out basic survival, the Jomon were already artists. But here's where the story shifts dramatically. Around 300 BC, a new group arrived, the Yayoi people. And they didn't just bring themselves, they brought revolutionary technology. These newcomers came from the Asian continent, and with them, they carried iron tools, advanced farming techniques, and a social structure that would change everything. With rice farming came stability, and with stability came power. The Yayoi weren't just farmers, they were organizers. Villages turned into communities, communities grew into kingdoms. And suddenly, Japan wasn't just a scattering of hunter-gatherers. It was becoming a civilization, and the world took notice. In 57 AD, the first written record of Japan appears in the ancient Chinese Book of Han, referring to the islands as Wa. Even then, Japan was mysterious, a land of rising power, catching the eye of distant empires. But here's the shocking part. While other ancient societies were crumbling under the weight of their own ambition, Japan was only getting started. By the 3rd century, a powerful ruler emerged, Queen Himiko. She was a mysterious shaman queen who ruled over the kingdom of Yamatai. According to Chinese records, she controlled her people not just through politics, but through spiritual power. Some say she had supernatural abilities, using magic and rituals to maintain control. Whether that's true or not, one thing is certain. Her rule marked the beginning of centralized authority in Japan. As the centuries passed, power began to consolidate under a single dynasty, the Yamato clan. And what's crazy? That same imperial line still exists today, making Japan's monarchy the oldest continuous monarchy in the world. Imagine a family holding power for over 1,500 years, a feat no other nation has matched. By the 8th century, Japan entered the Nara and Heian periods, an age of flourishing art, literature, and government. During this time, Japan adopted many ideas from China, like Buddhism, writing, and complex legal systems. But here's where Japan did something unique. They didn't just copy China, they made everything their own. Japanese culture became a fusion of outside influence and homegrown tradition, something that would define the nation's identity for centuries to come. And then came the samurai, the warriors who would become the face of Japan. During the Kamakura period, 1185 to 1333, a new political system called the shogunate emerged. While the emperor remained a figurehead, real power lay with the shogun, a military dictator who controlled the nation through the might of his samurai. These warriors lived by a strict code called Bushido, the way of the warrior, emphasizing loyalty, honor, and death before dishonor. But here's where things take a shocking twist. In 1274 and 1281, Japan faced its greatest threat, the Mongol invasions. Kublai Khan, ruler of the vast Mongol Empire, sent massive fleets to conquer the islands. Outnumbered and outmatched, Japan seemed doomed. But then, nature intervened. Both times, typhoons, later called kamikaze or divine winds, destroyed the Mongol fleets, saving Japan from conquest. Was it coincidence or something else? Many believed it was divine protection, reinforcing the idea that Japan was a nation destined to endure. Over the next few centuries, Japan became a land of constant conflict. The Sengoku period, or the Warring States period, was a time of chaos where rival warlords battled for supremacy. Out of the bloodshed rose one of the most feared figures in Japanese history, Oda Nobunaga. With ruthless efficiency, he crushed his enemies and set the stage for the unification of Japan. But even he was betrayed, forced to commit seppuku, ritual suicide, in 1582. Finally, in 1603, the Tokugawa shogunate seized control, ushering in 250 years of peace. Japan closed itself off from the world. No foreigners in, no Japanese out. This policy, known as Sakoku, isolated the country but allowed its unique culture to flourish untouched. But isolation couldn't last forever. In 1853, American warships led by Commodore Matthew Perry arrived, demanding Japan open its borders. The shock of foreign technology and power shook the nation to its core. Within a few decades, Japan transformed from a feudal society into a global superpower, a transformation no one saw coming. By the 20th century, Japan was no longer just an island nation. It was an empire. But that ambition led to World War II, where Japan's military expansion clashed with the world's greatest powers. The war ended in devastation. The atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945 remain one of the most shocking and tragic chapters in human history. And yet, Japan rebuilt. From the ashes of war, they rose again, becoming one of the most technologically advanced and economically powerful nations on Earth. So, what does Japan's history teach us? It's a story of survival, adaptation, and unbreakable spirit. From ancient hunter-gatherers to a modern superpower, Japan's journey proves that no matter the odds, resilience can shape the destiny of a nation. If this story blew your mind, like this video, comment your thoughts below and subscribe to Story Footprints for more epic stories that uncover the footprints of history. And remember, history isn't just about the past. It's about what we learn and how we shape the future. What legacy will you leave behind?